I'd like to have a big Croydon and Sutton welcome for the great Mr. Richard Edmonds.
Yes! Thank you, John. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, fellow nationalists. Thank you for the invitation to speak here this evening. A good turnout. This movement was set up to safeguard the British people and their British way of life. For years and years and years, we have been the voice warning the British people because the dangers and the threats are everywhere. You've only got to walk down past West Croydon Station, down the London Road there, and you would think that you was in some alien location, the other side of the world. You'd think you was in Timbuktu, Central Africa. You might think you was in Kabul, Afghanistan. You'd think you was anywhere but in Britain. We have been utterly betrayed, utterly betrayed, utterly betrayed. And now the Croydon Advertiser has come out. The Croydon Advertiser, John was showing it to you. The Croydon Advertiser has now come out and revealed the threatening fact that the very, very wealthy Ahmadiyya Muslim group is now looking for and intending setting up yet another mosque, this time in New Addington. This very, very wealthy and very, very powerful group has already got one mosque in Croydon. In addition, it boasts that it owns the largest mosque in Western Europe. That is the huge mosque in South London, on the London Road, Morden. That mosque at Morden, which boasts, owned by this Ahmadiyya group, which boasts is the largest mosque in Western Europe, is built on a 5-acre site and has accommodation for 10,000 Muslim worshippers. 10,000 Muslim worshippers. That is the news in the Croydon Advertiser. Now, the good news is, and there's always, look, in nationalism, there's always good news.
Here.
No matter how dark these days are, if we keep together, as earlier speakers have said, if we use our white brain power and our discipline, we will eventually win this struggle, which is why we have all given up this evening and why we've all given up so much time and effort in the past and will continue to devote and invest time and effort in the future, because our people are worth saving and we can lead the way and we can save them. And the good news is that in New Addington, the good folk of New Addington have got there a strong local organised team who've done a lot of work. You've already heard a bit about the work. I'm going to talk about the work because I made a contribution the other month to their work. That is the good fortune of the people of New Addington, that they have got you, campaigning on their behalf. And all strength to you and all credit to this Croydon unit, led by John and brother, and led by David. All credit to you. Because we have been utterly betrayed. There are dangers everywhere. The politicians, I call them the politician traitor trash. They're traitor trash. Labour politicians, Tory politicians, Liberal politicians, they're all the same. And I call them, and they should be called, traitor trash. Yeah. The traitor trash of Westminster. Traitor trash. The traitor trash have let so many millions of foreigners into our country, so many millions of foreigners and so many millions of Muslims, that now, across the whole, as an average, across the whole of England and Wales, 10% of the children, 10% of the babies born across the whole of England and Wales are now born to Muslim mothers. 10% across the whole of England and Wales. We're not talking about parts of South London. We're not talking about parts of East London or parts of the West Midlands or parts of Manchester. We're talking across the whole of England and Wales. 10% of those babies are born to Muslim mothers. And now the name Mohammed is the top name for baby boys in England and Wales. The name Mohammed. The latest horror is this new group that's sprung out of nowhere, absolutely motivated by hatred of us. And that is the group that styles itself the Islamic State. The Islamic State. For those of you who are on the internet, the Islamic State were the ones who last week got hold of 2 Westerners and publicly sawed their heads off. The film, the ghastly film, is on the internet. You can see one white man, Westerners that they had captured and kidnapped over there in the Middle East. They got one. They made a speech. They cut his head off, put it on the internet, boasting about it. Said we're going to do another one next week, another one, boasting and threatening, waving knives around. And the next week, they got another one. They've got a third one lined up. They've got a third one lined up. It is believed that the terrorists, they don't do it at a chopper from the back. They cut it like an animal. Like an animal. I think it's called shishishta.
It's like you're still alive when they're doing it.
Yeah. They're still alive.
Well, they did believe.
Yeah, mate.
That's right, what they did to leave. What they did to leave. That's what they did.
Unforgivable, mate.
Unforgivable and never be forgotten.
Never
to be forgotten. And never to be forgotten. Who let those killers into our country? They didn't invade us in some sort of D-Day and reverse action, come storming up BT Head. No, they were let in by the traitor trash. Never forget, the enemy is the traitor trash. The enemy is the traitor trash. When we sufficiently educate the British people that they realise who their enemy is, who set this lot onto us, the traitor trash, then they'll be voted out. I'll just say one word here. I'll go off into a tangent here. Some years back, I was also a member of the British National Party, very proud to be of it, and I'll remind you, never forget, 5 years ago, at the Euros of 5 years ago, the BNP, as I think most of us were members of, 1 million people voted that party, 1 million people voted BNP 5 years ago. And then the following year, at the general election of 2010, because the general election coincided with the local government elections in the same year, May 2010, that party put up 1,000 candidates in one day. Now that shows our potential. That shows our potential. I am aware that we've got problems at the moment, which I have no intention of talking about, I just say this to you. Keep together, as the earlier speakers have said, keep together and use the brains and the discipline, and we will get back with interest. One other final point. None of us here, I think, are friends of UKIP. UKIP is a totally phony party run by some geezer who made a lot of money in the City of London. Anybody who can make a lot of money in the City of London, you've got to be very careful with dealing with people who make a lot of money. Whatever nominal religion they might claim to be. But at the last lot of Euros, the protest vote was so great for UKIP, the protest vote was so great that UKIP, never mind Farage, the people at the last lot of Euros were voting protest. They were voting protest. And UKIP got more votes than the Labour trash, UKIP got more votes than the Tory trash, and UKIP got more votes than the Liberal trash. Now that is a protest vote building up. And if we play our cards right, as I'm sure we will, with intelligence and discipline, and as Carlos said, persevere, patience, we'll get all that back. Yes, I was talking about the latest horror, the Islamic State they call themselves. They are now perceived as such a threat that the President of the United States has said he's going to go in there and destroy the Islamic State. In addition, the Prime Minister is saying that he's going to send our forces back again to the Islamic State to destroy them. The Islamic State at the moment, as I'm sure you know from watching the news, is now racing through the whole of the Middle East, principally Iraq and Syria. They're setting up what they call the new caliphate, of the Islamic State. They're using the most brutal methods to do so. They're crucifying their opponents, they're terrorising and murdering, they're cutting the heads off of anybody who opposes them. all in the name of Sharia law. All in the name of Sharia law. But it's got to such a state that the Prime Minister is now talking about, well, planning to send the British forces back to the Middle East to destroy the Islamic State. Well, I will say to you, fellow nationalists, in this multi-racial, multicultural, multi-crime and riot-ravaged Britain, does David Cameron, the Prime Minister, understand that the Islamic State is very much here in Britain and very, very active in Britain? For example, very, very active here in Britain. Last week, the flag of the Islamic State was flying openly in the London Borough of Tower Hamlets, openly flying in the London Borough of Tower Hamlets, amongst the 2 million minimum Muslims let into Britain. There are voices openly calling for Sharia law in Britain, The question arises, does Mr. Cameron even know what's happening in this country? Does he know what's happening in this country? A friend of mine was in Oxford Street last week, and witnessed, bold as brass, handing out leaflets in Oxford Street, central London, supporters of the Islamic State, calling openly for Sharia law and calling for the Sharia state to be set up in Britain. So here's the Prime Minister. Does he even know? Does he know what's happening in this country at all? Does he know what's happening in London? Does he know what's happening half a mile away from number 10 Downing Street? Does he know? I will say to you, if Cameron wants to oppose dangerous religious fanatics and madmen who hack people's heads off, he's only got to go to Woolwich and North London, hasn't he, eh? Go to Woolwich and North London. What terminology do you describe? What terminology would you describe the people running this country? Would you call them twerps? Twaites, I call twerps, clueless twerps. They don't know nothing. They live in there, they got their limousines driven by chauffeurs, they got the whole lot, and they have no idea what's happening to the real Britain, to the real us. Yeah. The real Britain, the real us. So, we campaign amongst the British people. We campaign. And if I can say a word to John here and his team, there's a general election coming. I do hope that when the general election comes, that you contest Croydon Central at the election. Definitely, I'm very, very pleased to hear that. Because when you read this Croydon Advertiser, they say that this very, very wealthy Muslim group, the Ahmadiyya group, which you spoke about, John, have got plans, it's all in here, to set up at least one mosque, maybe several mosques, right across Addington Village, New Addington, Shirley and South Croydon. So when you put your candidate up in Croydon Central, tell the local people, you are all under threat. This mosque or mosque could come anywhere in your area. And I tell you something else, which John and I discussed about a week ago. We exchanged emails. This group, Ahmadiyya group, is not only fantastically wealthy, but they can build the biggest mosque in Western Europe at Morden. About a month ago, this group, Ahmadiyya group, had what they called a global village. They own a farm in Hampshire, and they organised a weekend-long rally of 30,000. We spoke about it, right? 30,000 of their supporters piled in to this little farm which they bought. They spent the weekend there, and then they linked up and called their little village in Hampshire, they called it a global village, because they simultaneously linked up with their partisans, their supporters right across the world. So they have got money and they have got numbers, and that should be pointed out at the general election. I would just say, John, that you made a very, very good start. This is the leaflet, a very good leaflet, which John and his team put out. No mosque here, no mosque here in no Addington. You made a very good start. That public meeting you organised was very, very good. The public came out, they supported you. You even made a film, which is on the internet somewhere, all there. And the 2,000 signatures. Listen, it was very, very good. And I'm going to make a point here myself on this local paper, because I'll make this point. Here's the local Croydon Advertiser. He's talking about the BNP campaign against the mosque. Yeah? So here's the headline: BNP campaign against the mosque. So that's it. The BNP, there it is. Everybody knows who's campaigning against this mosque. And there, as John said, a very, very handsome photograph of the local organiser, Cliff LeMay. Now, as John said, they've got umpteen photographs of us, and they can make us look smart, or they can make us look the opposite of smart. And there is Cliff, looking strong and handsome and very smart. And true. And I tell you,
and he's our parliamentary candidate.
He's
going to be a number 10 one.
He's the candidate, your candidate. And I'll tell you this, from years of experience in this business, I know that when a local paper gives your man, our man, such a good, or woman, such a good photograph, they do it for one reason only. They know that you're on the side of the community and the community's on your side. And by the way, yes, the mosque, the Labour Party, the Tory Party, they want the mosque. They want the mosque. Eh? Surprise about that. So, because they're trash and they're traitors. Because the Liberal and Con, the Labour trash, the Tory trash, and the Liberal trash, they've got no faith in the British people. Well, I think they've made a big mistake there. Because we are still the same people we've always been, and we're going to come back via this politics. We're going to come back, and that photograph in itself, when I saw that, I think as John or Cliff said, Richard, they phoned me up, you know. Phone me up every now and again on a friendly chat. We have friendly chat. They said, you've got to rush down to Morrison's, that's my supermarket, and get the local Croydon Advertiser, because we're all in there. And there it is. When I saw that photograph, I understood the significance of the photograph. So, the general election's coming. The general election is the time to expose and oppose the traitor trash. You've got the community with you now. I would suggest, John, to your committee, that you make the mosque the central issue. It is what I have been. I'll go on a tangent here, but I happen to live in the London Borough of Sutton, and a bit further over in Worcester Park, the Muslims want a mosque over there. Worcester Park's a very British, white part of the world, and it's so nice they want to move in and they want to establish their mosque and take the town over. There has been tremendous opposition in Worcester Park. 4,000 people signed the petition against the mosque. I attended a public meeting, it was absolutely crowded. Hundreds of people turned up, and they let the councillors know that they didn't want a mosque in Worcester Park. The Muslims appealed, and it was turned again down by the council. And then, in their wickedness, the government, the Tory government, the Liberal Democrat government, gave the Muslims an opportunity to have a third appeal. So there's now a third appeal going on now. But the people don't want it. And they don't want it in Worcester Park, and they don't want it in New Addington. And John, this paper makes clear, you are their champions. You are the only ones speaking up for them. And listen, best of luck to all of you, all right? Best of luck.